Well, I think I always knew the journey from being a child was going to be painting somehow or another, because it's just what I did when I wasn't playing. I think I first became exposed to painting through children's books, of course, but especially the more mature ones like Robin Hood, that was illustrated by N.C. Wyeth, and kind of drew me into the natural environment too, because within that context there were lots of magnificent trees and billowing skies and the sort. Definitely the imagery of the human imagery and the humans in the natural environment. I was an avid comic book reader, Mad Magazine, all those things, so I was familiar with the caricature artists of Mad, like Mort Drucker and many others. So I was always interested in realism, exaggerated realism though, Once I realized you had to labor in order to pay the bills, there wasn't a whole lot of free time fantasizing about being an artist. And so I always aspired to be an artist, and I was always creative, so I applied my creative skills to the graphic arts and made a good living doing that for 35 years, and made the big decision that when I am no longer doing what other people want me to do, to call it artwork, then I would please no one but myself. And if somebody else liked it, then that's great. As an art student, you try everything. You try pastels, acrylics, spray paint. But I didn't like the plasticity of acrylics or even the smell. And when I discovered odorless paint thinner, that's when I realized I could do it in a small space and not be upsetting a landlord. I was rushed through college. I perchance got a scholarship to college, mostly based on academic standards, but I opted not to go with anything academic and went into the art side of the school, which my father, who wanted me to be a business major, really did not like. But since he was not paying the bills, I was free to make my own poor decisions. And I was rushed through college because I clept my freshman year, and then I got into things that kids get into in college. And then in my senior year, I came out of that fog and graduated that year with a 4.0. However, my total average was like 2.53, so that tells you where my performance was. When I was in high school, I remember those matchbooks that would say, draw the pirate, and send us $500 and we'll send you a kit to get a commercial art degree at home. And while I was in high school, my parents spent the money to do that, which was definitely out of their price range because we were pretty blue collar. And so everything that I learned in that 2-year period through a correspondence course was applicable to a commercial art job before the digital age. Everything was ink on vellum or lettering, different skill sets that are lost anymore. Again, the natural environment and my family, and I'm still trying to get some shyer people of my family, more shy folks who don't want to even have, some folks don't want to be in a photograph, so try to capture them. I'm not traditional in a lot of respects, and a lot of people don't understand. I work from photography, and before I begin a painting, I'm probably compositing it from 7 or 8 layers inside of Photoshop. Not trying to make it photographic because my cuts and pastes are all pretty sloppy, but just to quickly compose, because, you know, even though I'm in my mid-60s, I still was raised with a camera and hit the ground running with the Macintosh back in the 80s, like I said. So it would be naive to think that, oh, I have to put my thumb out and draw with a pencil from life and paint with the figure in front of me. You know, life does not work that way. Completing one that I've worked long and hard on, because some of these paintings, you know, I start them and in the first few hours it's like, man, I'm most of the way there. And then that drags on for a month or two. and then I've put, you know, 60 hours into something, and I have a staging zone in my home, which is a big shelf. And I'll put the work that I'm in the midst of on that wall, and I'll walk by it 100 times a day. And as I walk by it, I'll think, oh man, I need to move that here, or wouldn't a bird be interesting there, you know? So, in fact, that's a pretty funny thing too, because there's an old Portlandia episode of a curio shop that was not doing good business at all. And the guy figured out that if he just put a bird on everything, the name of the show is called Put a Bird on It, things would sell. And so that worked with the first painting I sold. I put a bird on it and it sold, and it's like, okay, this is interesting. So I've got birds in a lot of things. I don't want to overplay it, so I won't do it consistently, but it is funny, and I think it's a human thing. It gives us a connection between the human figure and the natural environment to be present with a bird. I would only give encouragement, because whether you're good enough or not is secondary to what it is you get out of doing it and how you please yourself. And you have to be realistic. There's no way that you can start out in your first weeks, months, or years even and expect to be very proficient. I mean, it just takes over and over and over and over. And even today, there's sometimes I'll be working on a knuckle and, man, that thing looks more like a piece of popcorn or something like that. And it's like, and I will struggle with that for hours and hours and hours, and it's like maybe 2 square inches on a canvas. But until I get it right, being a Taurian, I am so stubborn, I will keep at it until I'm done.